These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Beautiful Bag podcast. I am your host, LeeAnne Hayden, coming to you as usual from the loft. This week, guys, I have been following Raina since we were just talking about like 2017 or 2018, whatever it was. And I think it was in her lip sync days. I was like, this girl's just really cool. Like, she's just really cool. She's got her ostomy out and I want to know her and I want to follow her. And I've been following her ever since. So, and watching her life and her journey. And she just wrote a book that I started to read and I fell in love with her even more. And I can't wait for us to talk about it. So Raina, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. It just, even you mentioning the lip syncing days, I kind of just, there's a piece of me that like cringes and then another piece of me that was like, oh, it brought so many people. Like, I just think there's no coincidences. And the fact that you found me and fell in love with my journey and all of these things, like, it's just, I don't know. I'm just so happy to be here. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'm glad you are. I'm glad you are, because we're going to unpack this whole thing, because I read this book and guys, if you don't know, her book is called Bare, B-A-R-E. And when she says bare, like, she bears it all. Like, she leaves nothing on the table. She expresses everything. She talks about everything from, her childhood all the way through life and all the things that she did, her successes in her career, and into her ostomy journey as well. And it's just, you have to grab this book. I'm going to leave the link in the show notes so you guys know exactly where to go to get this book, but you have to, because there's so many things in here that I could relate to and that I know others can relate to too,
Yeah.
So
thank you for saying that. I still am like pinching myself when people like hold up my book. Like, I've got a stack of them here and I'm like, I did that. Like, I'm not very good at celebrating myself and I never really have been. And so this has really been a test since I launched on April 4th to receive all of these kind words and celebrate the fact that I wrote, 300 plus pages of a best-selling book. So it makes me just, I don't know. This is crazy. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you should appreciate this and you should celebrate this, because like she said, it's over 300 pages. Guys, I had it read. If my husband hadn't bothered me to tell me we had things to do, I probably would have had it read in a day, because it was a page turner. I wanted to know like what's going on next. Even though I followed you for all these years, I'm still like, okay, what's next? What's happening here? So let's dig into everything. Let's dig into the journey. From you starting to have, UC symptoms and things like that, and you ended up in your ostomy. But I also want to talk about your work and the way you express yourself and the things that you just, you give all of yourself on social. Like, you don't not, you're truly authentically you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I don't know where to start, but the business side of things started in 2013. I don't even know what life that was off the top of my head whenever you're reading the book, but I came up, I think, in entrepreneurship and in social media at a time where it was normal to share all of those things. And we were encouraged to like be real and be vulnerable and share what you're eating and every food picture. And we didn't even have stories at that time. So it was more of like being encouraged to share like 3 to 5 times a day on Facebook and then 3 to 5 times a day on Instagram. And it just became such a normal thing for me. And then once that started to be celebrated, it's like anything, once you get attention for that thing and you're like, great job. And oh my gosh, that helped me. It's like, I wanted to do it more and more and more. And then, when Instagram stories came out and, even Snapchat kind of before that, like the storytelling piece, I really fell in love with. And like I kind of say in the book, there were so many people that I think connected with pieces of my life because I shared that way, because I got so vulnerable. Like, there were people that are still following me to this day that watched as I went through divorce and watched as I was in the hospital. Like, I went live on Instagram from the hospital the night before I was going in to have my final ileostomy surgery. And like I even get goosebumps thinking about that, just the journey that I got to bring people on, that without social media, I wouldn't have even had that opportunity, you know, and it just connected so many people, which I think is beautiful.
It really is, and it really does. And you're right, back then, because we were in the same industry back then,
Yeah.
and I started in 2011. And again, that was when Facebook was brand new, like not brand new,
Yeah.
but this is when everything was so
Yeah.
new. We're all just trying to, okay, share. And like you said, we were taught share 2 to 3, 3 to 5 times a day. And it was before stories
Yeah.
and stuff, and truly be authentically you. You're not selling something, you're just going to be out there and sharing your life.
Yeah.
And you've gone through, you did a great job at doing that. And then, like you said, going through your stories and people going live, people
Yeah.
wanted to know you, like they feel that they know who you are and what you were going
Yeah.
through and your struggles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I honestly, I think there's no coincidences, right? Like I believe that I got into that line of work. No, my soul in some way knew that I was going to have all of these things to go through. And if you read, like I didn't have prior to that, like a huge support system. I didn't lean on a lot of people. And so I think knowing what was coming, the illness, the single parenting, the, ups and downs with entrepreneurship, I think my soul knew I needed that community and needed to have that as this, like, you know, just this voice to like keep going,
Yep.
even when I didn't want to sometimes, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
I am, as much as I joke to people in my life that I hate social media and I wish I didn't have to be on it as much as I am, I also love it for that reason. Just the connection and the accountability and the encouragement that I've gotten over just the last decade has just been unreal, you know?
Yeah, and I feel you on that, right? It's like we're like, I'm sick of social media. I don't want to post today. I don't
Done.
want to do this. I'm over it. I don't want to share it.
Yeah.
I just want to eat my food and not worry
Yep.
about, oh, I got to take a picture of this and then share what I'm doing with everybody out there. Now,
Yeah.
your life has changed. So you were diagnosed with UC later on. Like,
Yeah. I wasn't diagnosed until 2016, early 2016. But I look back and, there were times where I would be sitting by the pool with all of our family and I would have hives all over my entire body. And I'm like, I don't even know what the hell this is. Like, this is crazy. And it was like, we would blame it on just being out in the sun and it would take a couple days to go away. And I had, strep throat, like every single month for a year of my life, and eventually got my tonsils taken out. And I constantly had like sores on the inside of my mouth. And then, you know, fast forward maybe a few years of just kind of battling with those things off and on, I then started to have like I was just going to the bathroom a lot. And I'm like, okay, this is normal. I don't know how, I don't talk to people about their bowel movements, I don't know what
right?
normal is. And so I'm just, living my life kind of going to the bathroom more and more and more and more. And then it was like early 2015, I think, where my husband at the time was like, I don't think you're supposed to be going to the bathroom that much. Like, that doesn't feel normal. Maybe you should go to the doctor. And it took me, a year of seeing doctors, going through, Eastern medicine and Western medicine and all of the different things to kind of figure out. And, it was maybe food allergies with some doctors, and others thought it was just stress, and others, it was just kind of up and down before I got diagnosed. And I finally found a doctor who suggested I get a colonoscopy. And I went in, got my colonoscopy. He sent me a picture being like, see, this is a normal colon. This is not, you have mild ulcerative colitis. And I was like, cool. I had never even heard of UC or Crohn's really prior to being diagnosed, right? It just wasn't
It wasn't, no.
something that was very talked about, you know? I think you say Crohn's now and people are like, oh, and you're like, oh yeah, everybody kind of knows that. But even though it wasn't years and decades ago, like even at that time in early 2015, it just wasn't on my radar at all.
And it wasn't on, and you're right, and it wasn't on many people's radar. I mean, now we've got all the
Yeah.
commercials with all the medications, of course, right?
Yeah.
But there are,
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot more, and bless us all for being out there sharing our journeys on whether it's Crohn's, colitis, cancer,
Sure.
ostomy journeys, all that stuff, and we're putting it out there. and a lot more awareness is becoming, it's becoming more prevalent.
Yeah.
Sad to say. I mean, I don't know if people
Yeah.
hit it more or if there are more cases because
Yeah.
you hear it more. Maybe it's just because of the world we're in and this is what we hear,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of
Yeah.
like the
Well,
white
and
guy syndrome.
awareness around it too. Like you see, models on billboards now with ostomy bags. And I'm like, awesome. Okay. So who knows if it's increasing or if it's just, there is more awareness around it. Either way, it's beautiful,
It is.
to just see it out there. So yeah, when I got diagnosed, we're like, okay, I think I was on like Lialda or something. And they were basically like, it's like a super mild medication. You will have to take it for the rest of your life to kind of, control symptoms and things like that. And I'm just like, okay, like it was kind of just like, okay, again, it hadn't like totally soaked in what I had been diagnosed with. And it was also a very mild case at that time. So I started taking the medication. And then, I share a little bit in the book. My husband at the time struggled with addiction issues, and you can't get addicted to Lialda, but I was still like, no medication. I was
Yeah.
like, I was very anti everything. And so after a month or so of taking the Lialda and starting to feel a little bit better, I was like, okay, maybe I can kind of control this with what I'm eating. And I'm a wellness coach at the time. So surely there is another option versus taking this medication for the rest of my life. And so I did go into remission, stopped taking the Lialda, went into remission for, a months. At that time, I think it was like October. So I went from like beginning, I think it was diagnosed in January. So January to October, started to feel better. I had started to lose weight, which was a good thing because before being diagnosed, I was struggling I was like packing some pounds on that was just, it was interesting. As much as I was going to the bathroom, I was like, I feel like something weird is just happening in my body. So I ended up, I don't know if it was hormones plus the UC or what it was, but I started to feel better than I ever had. I was energetic again. I was going to the bathroom like, humans are supposed to. And then in October 2016, that's when my husband at the time had claimed to be clean, and I found out that he was not, and ended up telling him I wanted a divorce and following through with said divorce, and um, now starting this season of single parenting, which I have two girls. They were like 8 and 10 at the time. And the stress of that, plus, and I share it's all in the back.
You do. Everything's in there. You share so much in the book. Everything's in here. Everything's in here.
Yeah, I bear it all. But he ended up like cleaning my bank accounts out. And so I was left with like nothing after making a beautiful income for the family that we had. And so there's just so much stress and heaviness. And I don't know, I think this is like the great debate of UC, Crohn's, all of that is like, what's causing it? And for the longest time, I was like, it's my nutrition. I had eating disorders. I competed, took steroids, like did all of these things to my body. And I swore for years that that's what had caused it for me. And then, when I did a little bit more research and just started paying attention, I guess, and talking to more people, I was realizing the stress that I had been under for a decade prior to actually even being diagnosed. And really started to believe that it was the stress that I was going through that was kind of causing the disease in my body, which now we know like stress causes disease and all these things. And so yeah, life got so hard at the end of 2016 into 2017. And so I, said goodbye to a marriage, and now I'm a single parent, and now I have to rebuild my bank accounts. And then I'm starting to just feel awful physically. And I went into a flare with my UC. I started to lose weight, rapidly lose weight, like dangerously skinny. Like I would stand up and pass out, be lightheaded. Like it was just, I couldn't eat anything. I was having to eat like cream of rice basically for every meal because it was the only thing that it wasn't even sticking, but it was the only thing that was gentle enough for me to eat that wasn't painful. And I ended up I'm like trying to match the dates with the date in the book because I had to like go back and look at Instagram posts and pictures and be
Well,
like,
look
when
and see
was
what it was,
this?
right? When did
Yeah.
that happen?
So it was early 2016. I believe it was like May-ish of 2016, 2017, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
That I first went to the hospital, and the doctor was like, this has spread. There is more disease than we initially thought. They told me I could be put on, I was put on Remicade, um, and steroids, to try to manage things, and didn't really do a lot. I know like Remicade, I guess, takes a couple, infusions to actually start feeling better. And so I was just being patient and literally like pooping my pants. Like I couldn't make it from my living room to my guest bathroom, which was like, just
Yeah.
right over there. Like I ended up having to wear Depends. Um, and I mean, I hit some lows during that time. Like I have like vivid memories of like feeling that I needed to go to the bathroom, getting up on the couch, having to like slowly walk because I didn't want to pass out. And I would make it halfway to the bathroom and just I just have to go in my Depends. And I would just stand there, just going in my Depends, just like, oh my God, I'm 30 years old and this is what life is. It was so hard. And then having the two, my girls would come home from school and they'd be all like, let me tell you about your day. And I'm like, I can't function
Right,
like this for
right,
much longer.
right.
Um, and so it was a couple months of that, after, or not even a couple months, probably like a few months of that. And then I was told that I needed to have, a surgery. I needed parts of my large intestine removed. They told me the plan to do a temporary ileostomy, and then they would remove it a few months later after that had healed, and do my J pouch, and then I would live with a J pouch. And I'm thinking, okay, like, and this is a piece of where social media was so beautiful of being able to like share that and people being like, I have an ileostomy and I'm doing great, and or I have an ileostomy and I hate it and I can't wait to see how you do. And I mean, it was just like great stories and horror stories all at the same time. And so I went through the surgery, had my surgery to place my temporary ileostomy. And I think it was that word of being temporary that made it easy peasy.
Yeah, and you
You know what I mean?
talk about that in the book. You're like, you know what,
Yeah.
this is going to be easy. I can focus on something that's temporary, and then go back to
Yes.
normal. So, because I was going to ask you, what were your feelings about what an ileostomy was, like what it looked like, where it was going to be placed in
Yeah.
the body, all of
Yeah.
those things. What was that feeling like?
I honestly had been, I don't know if I can cuss, but I had been like shitting my pants for so long that I was like, I don't even
Yeah.
care where, put it on. Like, if it's going to make me feel better than this, then I don't even care. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care anything. And I remember because I was newly single, and I think I wanted nothing to do with love, nothing to do with romance, nothing to do with men, nothing to do with anything like that. And so that wasn't even if I wasn't thinking like, oh, what if I date again? Or, oh, what if like that wasn't even on my radar. And I had had two kids. And so when they shared with me like, hey, that, it could affect later on your chances of getting pregnant again, I'm like, I don't care. Like I had zero hesitation. I was all in if it was going to make me feel better. And they went to explain it, and I had looked at pictures, and I didn't, I don't even think I was soaking in what was actually happening. Do you know what I mean?
I
Like
do.
I think there was this like, I've got a solution to make you feel better, and I was just like, whatever it is, I'll take it.
Just do
You
it.
know,
Just do it.
just do it. Just do it. So I wake up, temporary ileostomy. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I remember they're like, you can touch it. And I was like, I don't know if I want to touch it. Like, just looking down, being like, this is the
And
craziest thing.
watch it grow. It's like we can
And
see
watching it,
like
yeah.
we can see what your intestine actually does inside your body on the outside of our body, like how it
Yes.
grows and it shrinks and it grows and
Yeah.
it grows and it shrinks. It's like,
And they put on like the clear bag, so I can kind of watch everything. It's disgusting, right? But they put on the clear bag, and I'm like, they're like, you can start eating. And I'm like, anything? They're like, anything? I'm like, I can eat anything? And they're like, yeah. And so I like order hospital food and I'm sitting and I'll take a bite and I'm looking down and I'm like watching it and then watching it come out and I'm just like, this is trippy. Like,
Yeah.
it's trippy. And it still is to this day. Like, I'm still so fascinated by it. But yeah, so I woke up from surgery and felt better. Like, immediately. I was blown away. And so, I was in the hospital for a few days, went home. I had a PICC line in my arm. I had nurses come. I had to get, some IV nutrition. I had to have the nurse come and do my PICC line changes and had to get IV fluids. And so I was still very much in it for a good month after having my surgery. And I ended up even I had an event in like a month after my surgery that I was like, can I go to it? My doctor was like, if you feel good and you keep your stuff clean, like you can go to it. And so I was with a network marketing company at the time and I was top 10 that year. And so I even have like photos of me walking on stage to like be recognized as top 10 in the company. And I've got like a PICC line that is actually where the PICC line was.
Right there. Okay.
Tattoo.
Oh, tattoo. So you remind
Yeah.
where it is. Got
Yeah.
you. I got it.
I don't know if you've ever had a PICC line, but there's like a little foam circle
That it
that
sticks.
goes
Yeah,
in
I have
between.
not.
Yeah.
I have not.
Yeah.
I do know what they look like. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got that tattooed. But yeah, so it was such a crazy like time in my life where I was just like, cool, yep, this is what I got and this is what it is, and here's my PICC line. And I was, out at karaoke at 2 a.m. having some cocktails with my PICC line. And I'm just, it was just no big deal. And then my surgery was scheduled to remove the ileostomy bag and place my J pouch. And I woke up from that surgery and I immediately was like, something's off. Something's off. And I hated that because I was like so excited to not have the bag.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're just like, yes, this is fine. Period. It's fine. But is this something that I want to have to do for the rest of my life? I'd rather not. So they placed my J pouch. I left the hospital, a few days after that and had trouble, because you have that ileostomy, you go to a J pouch and it's almost like your sphincter muscles don't even know how to work anymore. So I was still in diapers, right? And having to kind of relearn how to go to the bathroom. And I didn't have, the control of my system that I did with my ileostomy bag. Mm-hmm. So there was a piece of me that was like, I remember even telling my mother-in-law at the time and my ex-husband at the time, like I missed my bag. I was like, I said it all the time. And I looked back at that period of time too, because I had my J pouch for about 8 months and it never felt normal. It never felt good. Like there was always something that I was like, it was in my head too, I think. Like, and down the road, there's so many books I've read and research I've done on the power of our thoughts. And I can't help but think back and be like, did I create this? Did I do this? Or like, what would have happened if I would have shifted my thoughts a little bit around the J pouch situation? And, what happened and is supposed to happen. But I ended up like regressing terribly with the J pouch, was going to the bathroom again 25, 30 plus times a day, could no longer hold it, was having accidents in the middle of my hallway. I had accidents in the grocery store. The final straw I kind of write about in my book is I was getting acupuncture pretty frequently, mostly for stress, but also to kind of like manage symptoms and things like that, or try to manage symptoms. And I had an accident on the acupuncture table. Yeah, on her white sheets, right? Had to have been white sheets. Like I couldn't hold it. And I'm sitting there like hitting the panic button with all of these needles and me just being like, I can't, oh my God. Like I just want my bag back. And I called my ex-husband at the time, asked him to come pick me up because I didn't feel safe driving. He took me to the hospital. They did all the stuff. All the disease parts are not removed. You've got some in your small intestine. It was like, you got a couple choices. You can get the surgery and go back to the bag. That is permanent. The amount that we have to remove, we won't be able to make another J pouch. You've also got abscesses. You've got like, so surgery is required regardless.
Right.
Um, or we can try these medications. And old Raina was like, I don't want to have to come however often in hopes that this medication works, to get my IV medication, to do my 3-hour infusions, and I'm just like, I picked the bag. I picked the bag 100%. And so, it was like okay, this is, if you do choose this, like, we sew up your butt, we take everything. There is no going back unless science just magically makes something happen. Right?
Which you never know. It might be down the
You
road.
never
Maybe not in our
know.
lifetimes, but
Probably not, but so, and he was just like, "Are you?" And I'm like, there was zero question in my mind, to like either have the bag or continue with this J pouch journey. And the J pouch journey meant, having a normal outside exterior, right? It meant I ended up getting, like, I have a tree of life tattoo on my stomach, and I ended up getting it like around where my ileostomy was after it had healed. And so I had like this little stump looking tattoo where my ileostomy scar was. And um, yeah, I had this whole story of like, this is just what it's, I'm got my J pouch, yada, yada, yada. But I knew deep, deep in my body that I needed to go back to the bag. And I reminded myself how good I felt immediately when I had the bag. I reminded myself that I functioned like normal when I had the bag. I ate out at restaurants when I had the bag. I worked out when I had the bag. You know what I mean? I was like, I could live a normal life and still have that bag. And again, dating, all of that wasn't even on my radar, but that memory of how good I felt was enough for me to be like, nope, I'd like to do that. Sew me up. I don't need to go back. This is final answer. So
this is the way I'm going to go with it. And you,
way.
and you did it, and you expressed it. You showed it. And the beautiful thing is, like, you shared so much even before I know a lot sooner than other people are sharing. Like, now I go on social media, and again, it's who we surround ourselves with. And I see so many people in ostomies. But like you said, more and more, there's people that are modeling now, and there's big posters, and there's these things, and you can share if you want to, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but you share very openly everything, you and your bag, you working out with your bag, what you were doing from eating, all the stories. So when it came, like you said, you felt immediately better with your bag. Like you just knew.
I knew it.
And then you talk about going out and dating, like finding someone after. And I want to have some secrets for people to read this book. They need some secrets, but we can touch on it a little bit. Of, you were like, go check out my social media when you met this person, like, go check it out. And he's like, I did, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah. My nightmare was having to sit down in front of someone while I'm eating my like roasted chicken and whatever, being like, so I don't I don't poop like you poop. You know what I mean? I'm like, how do we say this? And so I was so grateful that I had been so open on social media, because I was like, dude, if anybody follows me, they know I've got it. So, and it's not as, I don't talk about it as much now, so it's different now. But then I was like, just, by the way, have you like browsed my Instagram or anything? Like, anything red flags? He's like, I saw it. It's good. And I'm like, okay.
All right then.
All right. And, went on a first date, and it was okay. And having that first relationship after having the bag was like, I say this to my therapist a lot, and I don't want to ruin anything in the book, but I think I fell so in love because it was the first person after having my ileostomy that comforted me in that way, that showed me love, that showed me that I could still be loved and have this bag. And you know what I mean? So there was a deeper, like, not even connection to him. It wasn't even the person. It was just what he gave me in that healed a piece of me that I didn't know what it was going to look like. Does that make sense?
It does. It was a deeper meaning to you.
Yeah.
It was a deeper meaning of, okay, he acknowledged my bag. He acknowledged that it was okay. He loved me regardless.
Yeah.
And and like you said, he showed you that you deserve to be loved and that you live a normal, normal, I put in quotes because we are normal, but
Yeah.
you can live that tradition. You can still do all the traditional things, with your bag that, I've been with my husband for 23 years. So when I was going through all my stuff with my cancer and stuff, it was, dude, this is just what you're getting.
Yeah, you got it.
We're married. There's 5 kids. There's the house. There's the house. There's all the things. Like, this is just, he didn't care. He's just like, I just, you, I don't care about the rest. And some people even say to me, like, did your sex life change? Did this change? And I'm like, no, I just make sure I got a clean bag on, folded in half, and things are okay.
Wham, bam. Wham, bam.
Plus we're getting older and we're like, yeah, all right, well, it's been 2 months.
I get it. I get it. I do. Yeah. It was almost like it was almost like he was the permission that I gave myself. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. So that relationship ended up not working out. All the details are in the book. And so I, in this season of my life, I'm not as, I don't know to say if I say open or sharing as much or visually sharing as much. I have like a newsletter and I write a lot in there and I'm very vulnerable in my newsletters. But since that breakup, I had to kind of go on this self-love journey, if you will, and really focus on myself. And so I think throughout that, I got more quiet on social media. I changed how I showed up on social media. I don't have, bags out on social media and there's zero disrespect. You know what I mean? Like, yes, do it if you feel like doing it. It just, so a deep piece of me shifted after that. And so, now it was like May of 22 when we officially split, like a couple of years later after that relationship, I'm now in this space where I was like, okay, I'm going to get back on Tinder again. And a different worry came up for me after that of like, not the fact that there wouldn't be anybody that would accept an ileostomy, but the fact that I wasn't so open about it on social media. So now I had to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was this nervousness that's been squashed now, but like came up for a while whenever I was thinking about dating again and just being able to be like having to actually tell somebody.
And how was that? It does. How was that the first time you had to actually tell someone?
Nerve-wracking. So nerve-wracking. Because you don't know how people are going to respond. You know what I mean? Right. Especially, I don't know. Like, I am dating somebody now and we talked for a while before I told him. And when I told him, it was more of this like, oh, what's that? And I'm like, I don't want to have to tell you what it is. Go Google it or so, you know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to. But I told him what it was. And then he was quiet for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, shit. Oh, he's gone. He's just, what's he, where's his head going? He Googled it and it's done. And then he was like, okay, I just had to like look it up and I read a little bit about it and like went through some stuff. He's like, that's great. That's cool. And like, it was just like one of the, like, you just got curious and was asking questions and it's just, now it's totally fine. And it's interesting because the last relationship I was in, the one that gave me that permission, I guess, to be loved with an ileostomy, he didn't ask questions about it really. He just was kind of like not there in our relationship. And in this relationship, like, man, I'm with will like put his hand on it and like ask me questions about it. And I'm just like, just melting. Like, so it's almost like this relationship now is the one that's like, I'm going to show you how you're going to be loved. Like, you can be loved. And yes, this is permission over here, but this one is like just taking it a step further. And so I don't know. It just, what a ride.
What a ride.
It's been with a bag,
What a ride. It's definitely a journey. It's definitely not something that we want. right? However,
Yeah.
it is what we have. I
Yeah.
I like you used to do fitness competitions prior to all of this, right? And I was 39 when I did my first one because I'm like, I got to do it before I'm 40. I gotta do it
Awesome.
before I'm 40. So I did it way back, and I'm going to age myself, but way back in 2010, and then went through all of that. And I don't want it because I wear bikinis all the time, and and I was 44 years old, and I didn't know what my husband was going to think. And I went away to Italy a couple of years ago on a yoga retreat, and this woman gave me a massage, and I've gotten plenty of massages. Nobody touches your stomach in a massage here in the US.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
in Italy, they
Oh,
do.
no.
And I hadn't said a word. I didn't tell the woman. I'm laying there, and she has me, flip over. And then all of a sudden she folds up the towel to cover my breast and pulls it down. And then I'm like, my stomach's there, my bag's there. And I'm just, you're trying to relax. But then I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And she started to rub my stomach. She just put oil on her hands and started rubbing my stomach like she was moving stuff around. And I started crying because I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't remember the last time that somebody has literally touched my stomach in such a way
Yeah.
that it's okay. And I started to cry. I'm like, oh yeah, and she's touched my stomach. So I came home and told my husband after that, I'm like, you got to touch my stomach more.
Yeah. It gives me chills, actually. I love it.
Yeah.
It's true. I don't think I realized this until after and having it, but I'm like, there's so much also that I think for me personally that was stripped away from me with having a bag. I talk about it a little bit in the book, and I just felt like a sting behind my eyes. I'm gonna try not to cry, but like even the like in that relationship, like there was a piece of playfulness that I felt like would be gone. You know what I mean? Like sexual playful. You know what I mean? Of like I kept having daydreams about like my boyfriend coming up behind me and like putting his arms around my stomach and like even playfully like lifting me up and whatever else it was. And I'm like, that's gone. I'm constantly going to be this like self-conscious, like worried, don't fall off my back, like constant, like forever. And I worry that I'm going to be like that forever. And this current relationship has eased a lot of that. And there's been like situations where I'm like, oh my God, that was actually playful and fun. And oh my God, that is what I've been missing. You know what I mean? So in my head have like had to kind of like release some ideas or I watch a rom-com, right? And I'm like, could never be me. Like a certain situation could never be me. And I'm like, that sucks.
Right. But it
That
could be,
sucks.
right? I think
But
that
it could be.
because I think we've put this thing over ourselves, and in the listeners here, we all have ostomies, and the majority of people that listen to this have ostomies or are going through the surgeries and what they're
Yeah.
going through. And that's one thing is I felt the spontaneity was going to be gone. Like I can't be
Yeah.
spontaneous. I have to go make sure I have a clean bag on. Like that whole
100%.
way, I don't
Yep.
want to, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I think
No.
it's learning ourselves. And like you said, you've done so much self-development. You read so many books. You're very in tune with your body and your mind and your thoughts. And the things that we think come true, right?
Yeah.
So it's, you know what, I can be playful, and you're learning,
Yeah.
and he's showing you we can do this, and it
Yeah.
can be a rom-com, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, and it's just interesting, I think, the seasons that we go through in life in general, but and also with the ileostomies and just, you know, and I think it's different for everybody because, you're married and he's not going anywhere. And when I got the ostomy, I'm single and then there's dating and then single again. And so there's so much in my world that has felt kind of unsure or like I wasn't able to predict what life was necessarily going to look like with an ileostomy bag specifically. So I don't know. It's just been a trip.
It's yeah,
The
yeah,
whole
it is a
thing.
trip. And that's all in the relationships. And you've
Yeah.
even been surrounded by some amazing women. You've met some amazing friends. I mean, you do talk
Yes.
about in the book, like you were more, the guy's girlfriend, like, you were the
Yeah.
girl and
Yeah.
all the guys.
Yeah.
You've, because of your career, because of what you did, you went into that journey of now I'm surrounded by all these women, and it's a
Yeah.
great career. For
Yeah.
that season of time, it's a great career. But now you've moved on. So it's,
Yeah.
you went from being a wellness coach and now you're a life coach, and
Yes.
you're life coaching people through their own personal journeys.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what made you make that switch from wellness to life?
It's in the book.
Mhm.
And also, there was the universe, honestly, constructing like this perfect, transition, to be honest. I think in 2020, there was a situation that happened that kind of hard stopped me in the business I was in. That hard stop made me doubt everything, like who I am, what I talk about, how much I share on social media, the language that I use, like everything. I went through somewhat of an identity crisis while the whole Black Lives Matter and all of these things are going on around me. That's just like, there's so much, it was just such a dark COVID, like, just such a dark season. And
She has a couple of dogs, guys. So
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Well, not a couple of dogs. I got 3, and one is 6 months old and just
Wants to play.
terrorizes my youngest or my tiny one. Yeah. But 2020 happened. I'll just say that 2020
Mhm.
happened, and I started to question the wellness space that I was in. And so I wanted to make a transition. I am very big on vision. And so I sat down in the depths of this depression that I was in, and I was like, you know what? This doesn't feel good. If I don't change anything, it's still not going to feel good. Like, it's probably going to continue to get worse. So if I make some shifts, like, what would life look like? And I allowed myself to daydream a little bit in terms of like I loved working with people. I loved connecting with my people one-on-one. I loved doing group stuff at that point. I loved the mentoring side of things. And so I kept thinking, I was like, okay, if I'm not going to mentor in that, what would I mentor in? And one of the biggest things people would ask me about is like, how am I so consistent through divorce, through illness, through all of these things? Like, consistency was like my thing, just showing up through the shit basically. And I was like, well, I could do that. And I'm like, okay, I guess I could just start talking about that. But there was a piece of me that needed the title, so that I could have that. I don't even know what it is that I need. You know what I mean?
Like you want
I
to be
think like
certified, right? Like I need a
I needed some
certification.
kind of certification. Yes.
Yeah.
I also hate school. I hated school. So there was this resistance of like, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to do, any, crazy long certification. I want to get this thing so that I have the title so that I can make this shift. And so I got my life coach certification, um, and slowly started to phase out of the fitness side of things. And I think the biggest shift that I noticed, or the reason for the shift that I noticed, is because I was getting, even in the wellness space when I was deep in it, I was super annoyed with how many excuses people had when it came to fitness and nutrition. Like, I became known as this tough love coach because I was this, I don't give a what you got going on in your life. Like, how are you? I got an ostomy, I got divorced, I have 2 kids by myself, I bankrupt, you know what I mean? I had like all of these things, and still I can do my stuff.
Yep.
And so it was the struggle of having to mentor people that would come on with woe is me and 100 excuses underneath their, in their toolbox, and just that kind of mentality, that I was like, okay, I think it's deeper. I think this is when I started to like do deeper research into our thoughts and our mindset and things like that. And I just wanted to wrap my head more around why we're making these excuses. It's not that the workout plan isn't good. It's not that the meals aren't the right meals for you. There's something deeper. And I wanted to do the deeper work in that season of my life.
Yeah. And you're doing great things with that. And one of the things you
Thank
mentioned in
you.
the book, and then we're going to stop talking about the book because I want people to buy the book. But is journaling, and how journaling changed a lot of things for you. And I talk about this a lot on the podcast of, how do we get through the times? And sometimes it's, you've got to get that pen to the paper. It's not typing it. My husband will type it up on his computer. And no, babe, like you
Not the same.
pen and paper, get it out of your head, because when you put it to paper, then it literally almost releases it from your mind.
Yeah, I started journaling in 2020. I needed an outlet. My ex-boyfriend's parents got me this little journal for Christmas. I started, 2021 journaling, and then I paused it when COVID got crazy. or no, not, I'm sorry, in 2020. And I paused it when COVID got crazy. And then I decided to take a social media break in December of 2020. And that was the first time I had allowed myself to not be on social media since 2013 when I had started. So it was like 2000 something days of being on social media every single day, sharing my stuff. And on December 1st of 2020, I told myself I was going to take a 30-day break. I had physical withdrawal symptoms, which is crazy to say, like, even just to say out loud, like I was shaking, my heart rate was crazy, I was sweating, like my anxiety was through the roof. I needed somewhere to put everything that was happening.
It's
You know
because
what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's that dopamine kick. I mean, that's what they've
yeah,
created social media to be now. It is that
yeah,
dopamine kick that you need to have. Because I
yeah,
will watch myself and be like, I'm taking Sundays off, or I'm taking a day off, or I
yeah,
don't feel like posting. Like I've been sporadic with my posting, and I'm like, I don't care if I'm
yeah,
sporadic with my posting
yeah,
because that's not my. I want to share. I want to be around people, but that's not my
right,
everything. I actually
right,
have a husband
right,
and children and grandchildren and a life, right?
yeah,
I'll go
yeah.
live.
Well, and I think for me, it had become my everything. And that's why I think when that crash of 2020 happened, my everything was like exploded.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so I felt lost. I felt like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to speak. I didn't talk in my stories anymore. I went quiet on social media. I had a podcast I was involved in where we would start recording the podcast, and then 10 minutes in I would just be sobbing because I'm like, I felt I was shaking. I didn't want to speak because I was so scared to speak. And it hard paused everything. And so fast forward to like December 2020 and then into 2021, it took me a good 30 days, 2 months to allow myself to write about things I needed to write about, right? Like at first when you start journaling, it's like today John said this, and it was very surface level and just doing it to just do it. But it was that consistency of doing it that I eventually started to go, okay, wait, I keep writing about that. Where's that coming from? And dig, like I got more and more curious, and then I got better and better at journaling, and then I started to fall in love with writing in general, and the release it gave me and the depth I could go to on paper that I couldn't do face to face anymore. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't speak it, so I needed to start writing it. And it to this day is one of the most healing tools and powerful tools that I have. Those are my journals all back there. I've even got
I see them. I see them. Yep.
yeah,
I have mine all over too. So
yeah.
so if you were to offer someone some advice, if you were to say, you know what, you're in an ostomy, you're going through stuff in your life, how would you what would you recommend for them to do to start journaling? Is it just get the piece of paper and just start writing what's in your heart, like what's coming to mind? Or is
Yeah,
there
I mean, I get a notebook that you're drawn to, right? Go get a special notebook for you to start. And then I just start writing. I have this journal. I've got post-its all over it because I'm gonna rebrand it to go with the book. But on the back, I have these instructions, and my whole prompt on the back of my journal is like, I don't like journaling prompts. I hate journaling prompts, actually. I think journaling prompts put us in this little thing, and we're like, okay, I have to sit down and I have to write about this thing that's prompt. And I'm like, sometimes I want to write down or sometimes I want to sit down and I want to cry on my pages. And sometimes I want to sit down and I want to bitch about something on my pages. And sometimes I want to get curious about stuff on my pages. And so prompts I kind of steer away from. But I sit down and have the date and I circle the time, and I just start writing, today I feel.
Mhm.
And today I might feel anxious. Today I might feel frustrated. Today I might feel sad. Today I might feel overwhelmed. And then I build off of that. Of if today I feel anxious, why?
Mhm.
Why am I feeling anxious today? Where's that coming from? And it's like, oh, well, maybe I have this appointment that I need to go to or something like that. And then, okay, what am I afraid is going to happen at that appointment? And I would write out what I think is going to happen. And then, okay, well, but that actually is in my head. So what's the truth of the situation? Like what could happen? You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I am just like a psycho in there talking to myself on paper to work through those thoughts that I think if they're not out, they're in. And
Mhm.
when they're in, they're churning and they're building and they're creating. And then what we're constantly thinking is going to be happening, you know?
Yep.
I think that I have learned since 2020, and I know that I hate this word, so I'm going to have to figure out something different. Can you sit down, please? Trying to put my sit down. Thank you. The power of manifestation. And he's just, 6 months
Hey.
old. Yeah. But the power of manifestation, I have really realized is just, it's life changing. It really, truly is. I would sit down and write out the truth of situations, or if it wasn't the truth of situations, it would be okay. Like, what do I want life to look like a year from now? And I would write it all out in detail. Like, I wake up at this time and this is how I feel. This is the energy I carry. And it wasn't, this is the house I'm in or the car I'm in. It was like, how am I feeling through this day? And what am I doing? And what is the impact I'm making? And what does that look like? And every single time I've done it, a year later, 2 years later, it's happened. Like, I remember in 2022 going through old journals and finding that page in 2020 that I wrote of like, life doesn't feel good. What do I want life to look like? And I was crying, being like, I'm living that. I'm living it right now. It's just crazy to me. Crazy.
And you had said it, it's like, if you don't get it on paper, it's going to churn and churn and churn in your head.
Yeah.
So you can't come to a conclusion. And that is the magic of the pen to the paper and putting it out there and getting it out of your head and then figuring out like, so, and writing it instead of thinking, so why am I thinking like this? And da, 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 in your head, like you're just going to keep going in that circle, but getting it on the paper, you're coming to conclusions faster than if you're going to think it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And people say, oh, I want to do a voice memo. And I'm like, it's not the same. None of it's the same. The digital, the voice memo, none of it's the same. There's just power in writing. And I mean, it's now a book. You know what I mean? I'm like, now it's a book, which is
now it's a book.
crazy.
And I'm holding up the book again. And guys, again, I'm going to put this in the show notes. You need to go get this book. It's called Bear. You have to go get this book. So Raina, thank you so much for being here with us this week. You've shared so many great things. Thank you for sharing your journey. And I always ask this to everyone. If there was just one thing that you would want to leave our listeners with, what would that one thing be?
I feel like there's 100 things. It's in the book, but I had this conversation. My brother, actually, who spent most of my adult life in prison, was out and came to Denver not long ago with my dad to kind of visit. And he was talking about his life, and we were talking about our childhood, and we were talking about all of these things. And he was in love with Colorado, and he was like, Raina, I want to get out. Missouri is where he's living. And he was just kind of like daydreaming and all of these things. And I looked at him and I was like, Mark, where you are now is not where you always have to be. Like, the situation you're in now is this season, in a season of life that you're the pilot. You get to decide which way everything is going to go. And so that's it. Where you are now isn't where you always have to be. And that is with your ostomy, and not even necessarily with your ostomy, because it might be permanent, but with your mindset around your ostomy, right? With the way you're living your life right now, with the things that are coming in, like, everything is so temporary, and we have so much control over the direction we get to go.
And we do. And Raina, I have to thank you so much. People want to find you. It's Raina O'Dell on Instagram. Again, I will put her links. I'll put the links to the book. Thank you so much for being with us today, this week. The dogs are playing in the background.
I'm yelling at the dogs.
She's got herself muted, yelling at the dogs. No, really appreciate you. Everything that you've done for this community has been huge, and truly appreciate everything that you've done and that you continue to do, and you continue to thrive. And I love watching pictures. We didn't even talk about your horses, but read the book. They can find out about the horses, but seeing that you living life to the fullest, and just shining. So thank you so much for being here with us this week.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.